Avast ye, knaves! Welcome! Hacking business technology. We're going to take this sword and
People.
hack people. Today we're hacking people, which seems, as Farah pointed out, very appropriate for a Halloween episode. Welcome, Farah Remtula, Mr. Matt Hooper.
Welcome, Mr. Barron.
Welcome, friends.
I would rather be nowhere else on a Friday afternoon except for perhaps the bar.
Soon enough.
I don't go to bars. They're dirty. You get hepatitis B there, hepatitis C. It's not worth it.
Just kill with alcohol. Isn't that the plan?
I don't think hepatitis dies with alcohol. So today we're talking about hacking people. So I figured we should start off with something really basic because I don't know that people this is sort of a science or like an art or both of those things, and I don't think that people understand that they want to convince people or like to hack people or change people in a way. And so what I want to do is just cover real quickly what are some reasons that we want to change people? What are things that we want to change about people?
Because we want to control them. We want them to do things for us. We want to manipulate them. We want slaves. We want power.
Yeah. I mean, that's a snarky response, Mr. Kotek.
Well, I'm just putting it out there.
Well, what do you think, Farah? Give me some real world examples, Farah, because I know that you work for real.
Well, I think, when you have something that's got a large objective, implementations, a new way of working, a new way of doing things, your biggest barrier is often the attitudes and behaviors that come from the people who are going to be affected by that change. And so, we're so quick to jump on culture, but really we need to be jumping on attitudes and behaviors, and that's what really impedes us. And over time, if we can correct those, we can then transform culture. But if we're talking basics, I'd say that that's what we really strive to change.
So that was a good point, and I think we should maybe that is what we should actually talk about first is culture, because let's see, Roger Williams says this actually. He says that systems define structure, not structure defining systems. And I sort of think the same thing of people and culture, that the people drive the culture, that you can't directly change the culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a matter of the fact that you get behaviors, right? It's kind of like people hate the fact that I don't pay attention to details. And I joke about it. I say, details and I don't get along. When my daughter actually just the other day was getting punished for not responding to her mother, she says, well, Dad never answers when we call him, right? So there's a behavior there. But at the same time, when it comes to critical thinking, I'm pretty good. I usually make really decent decisions most of the time. And it's because I do think so intently about it that I cut everything else out, right? So you kind of get one thing with the other. One behavior of, analytical thinking and be able to focus and to compartmentalize gives you another behavior, which is somebody who doesn't pay attention to details and, kind of can shut the world out.
That's a really good point, and I think what's interesting about that is that so often when you are in HR and you go and do your big performance review and all this craziness, people always go, well, what are things that, are your strengths and what were your weaknesses and what can you do to improve? Why bother improving weaknesses? Capitalize people for their strengths, get the right mix of the right behaviors and skills in the room, and build your team. And it kind of amazes me that there's so much focus on improving your weaknesses. It's a weakness.
Yeah.
So this is really, go ahead, Hooper.
I was just saying, is it a weakness? For instance, so, here at my organization, we're mostly a process consulting shop, right? We hate to coin ourselves that way, but that's what we are, right? So what do you have? You have linear thinkers, analytical minds, but they're completely non-creative. Anybody checked out our website from 4 months ago, they would have told you, terrible creativity, right? So I hire this marketing person, and some of the folks have said, well, she doesn't communicate well, she doesn't have a plan, she's not logistical. They're calling out all her weaknesses. But she's exceptionally good at creativity. She's got a great eye for design. She's she's very extemporaneous, and she can really work a crowd. So it's like, it's not like you said before. I think you nailed it. It's just their strengths, are different. Not that they're really weaknesses. 'Cause I didn't hire her to put a lot.
Oh, did mine drop or did you drop? Someone dropped. For a second there, it went silent.
Yeah. Podcast.
I just cocked my head like a puppy. The internet's down?
What?
No, I like that. When I look at something like that, I think of weaknesses as a team gap, not necessarily a weakness. It's something that you need to fill in with someone else. And what's interesting? Farah, I think, were you on the Zappos tour, Farah?
Mm-hmm.
So they talk about culture, like they directly talk about what culture is, and they were in a unique position because they addressed culture right at the onset of the founding of the company, and the person defining the culture is the CEO and owner of the company. And so, like, to have that seems to be like the perfect triangle for defining culture. If you can have those things, you will win at culture. But what's implied then is that if this is something that HR is doing, their talent management practices, let's say, don't your individual HR employees and leaders sort of, even if you just changed HR personnel, that is going to affect the culture so much. It's going to change the future of the culture too, and who you're hiring and what talents you see, and it implies that HR is driving more of what our company is capable of than even the leadership can.
Well, or maybe utilizing HR in a whole different way to that end, right? So when I develop a project team and I'm going to go and implement a brand new ITSM system or whatever system it is with all the supporting processes and all that craziness, right? We are so focused on the client culture. What about the culture you've just built with your team? Do I have the right skill mix? Do I have the right behaviors and attitudes based on what I know of the client? Why can't we leverage HR and say, hey, we want to do things like DISC assessments or Berkman or Myers-Briggs, and there's value in that, and here's why. I think that would be my first people hack of the day. Hack HR. Tell them you need to hack into the mindsets of the people we work with.
Like, I don't know if this is a plan of DISC, because I haven't done it yet, but when I first learned of DISC, it was from the folks over.
What are you?
The University of Alberta has instituted this in their
Sorry.
your hometown, and they put their letter on the door so that, because I guess DISC is all about, like, if I'm an I, it's not about like how people treat me, it's how I as an I will treat an S versus treating an E.
Right.
So on their door is who they are. So when you're walking into their office, you're reminded, hey, you're walking into the office of a C. So these things and not these things, right? Which I think is awesome. Yeah, it's behavior, like we said. It's change. If you want to institute a culture, it's as a leader, you can't. I don't think you can put on posters what your culture is. I think you absolutely have to drive it and embed it every single day.
And in every decision.
In every decision, yeah. Every action has to have a cultural reaction.
Yeah, and if you don't, it gets out of hand, or it becomes what it organically would be, and humans organically are not very pretty.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like, this organization will go nameless, but they pride themselves on being an exceptionally open culture, and they have, like, everybody sits in open table spaces. There's no offices. Even like the senior most IT people, the CIO sits up there with everybody. And they prided themselves on being an exceptionally open culture. That's what they kept saying that they were. But the reality is it had nothing to do with their office space. The way that they interacted with each other, the way they treated each other at the different levels within the organization, they were an exceptionally closed culture. Like the person at this level, if it was found that they were talking to somebody 3 levels above them, was just met with complete outlash. You know, so it's just kind of like one of these things where people will try to force a culture, and it's like that will never create the culture you're looking for.
Yeah, appearances can be deceiving. So this is good. I think that we've sort of explained, because we're not hacking here, as Adam Mason would point out. This is not literal hacking. I'm not doing anything with source code right now, Adam. I'm sorry. But I think, you know, if I'm going to hack some source code, this is the place that I need to start, is with people. So appearances can be deceiving. We've covered people. We've covered culture, and kind of like, you know, you're stuck with what you got. I'm sorry. Farah put up a good point. If you're starting an ITSM project, you know, why don't you involve more people? I think the undertone of that statement is that if you're only pulling from an IT talent pool, it's likely that your project to change people and process is not going to be good enough. So pull wider. Diversify your teams is basically what we were saying when we were talking about team gaps. And being able to pay attention to different skills is going to make you empower you to build a better, more robust team that's able to, you know, communicate well and still be creative, but also, you know, maybe have some of those OCD INTJs that are going to come up with your marketing plan and that sort of thing. So that's good. I like that, because that is what people are, especially within an organization and an organizational mindset. So some of the things that we want to change. You know, let's use a real world example. I know this is going to be painful because it's stuff that we actually have to think about and actually consult on a regular basis. But what if we wanted to change? Let's take a simple example of switching from Office on your computer to Office 365. Right? We're going to cloud. So, what are some elements that we need to consider if we're switching platforms like this when it comes to people?
Yeah, so so you're hitting again a behavioral issue, right? And in the startup world we call it switching costs, right? So for someone to switch their behavior, there's always a cost associated with it. And and like to go to the cloud, what has I think helped some organizations take off and others not take off is when they've been able to reduce those switching costs, right? When you reduce the friction to get the outcome you're looking for, you're actually hacking people. Dropbox, right? Why did Dropbox take off? Is because you didn't have to go to SharePoint's stupid file uploader and upload your file. It was you got the email with the document attached, you right-clicked saved, and it went to some folder, and then you closed and moved on and did the rest of your things. You didn't worry about where that cloud was. It sat, as far as you knew, on your C drive or in your Finder, right? It was just there.
Yeah, yeah. So it's sort of like usability, or the pain in the tuchus for a person to go from point A to point B.
Yeah. In OCM, I think we try to push that. Like, we need more organizational change management. We need a vision and value map so that people will actually start putting tickets into the tool. No, how about we just make it so simple and easy for them to put the ticket into the tool? They can do it from a mobile device, or they can right-click in the app they're in.
But you're touching on two elements. One is the method you get them to do it, and two is how you design the actual new thing, right?
Yes.
So there's a design aspect. Now, if you are making it simple for them, then your design is supporting an increased adoption rate, right? Like the chances of adoption. But regardless of how simple I make it, if I give you a brand new shiny red button, the point at the end of the day is if you have no vested interest in following my beautiful procedure that tells you at a 45-degree angle, hold your arm and precisely this sound, hit this red button, and if it's the simplest thing in the world, if you don't want to do it, you're not going to want to do it, and it won't happen. So, you know, when we talk about OCM, I think people think of training, people think, oh yeah, communication, but they don't think of attitudes and behaviors and communicating that with a message or what have you, right? But equal to that, I think you raise a very, very important point, is design. Design is so important to adoption, especially now.
Yeah. It's been said, if I have to train you on how to use your self-service catalog, I've already failed. If you need documentation on how to order something from IT or get a request from IT, you failed. So if you're
so many people are attached. Here's the thing. It comes back down to it. I cannot tell you how many challenges in current client engagements we've had with, why are you so attached to this ridiculous notion of work instructions?
Yeah.
Hey, you don't need it, but they're so fearful. So the reason why they're attached to it is because we have incorrectly addressed their attitude, their behavior, their fear factor. They still want it. It may not ever be looked at, but they want it because it makes them feel better.
Yeah, it's because we don't. We live in a world where technology is an action, right? It can take action for us. So we don't need work instructions. If I start to type in, 7 digits, well, figure out that it's probably a telephone number. If I put in 9, figure out it's my social security number. It's just, it doesn't take all that much for us to figure some of this stuff out, but yet we do not capitalize on it well.
Well, that's bloody interesting. And so, why does that still exist? Are there middle managers and directors somewhere that are making these decisions? So Farah labeled it well. She said it's fear, right? There's fear of getting rid of work instructions. So who's owning that, and why do they own that, and why do they keep hanging on to it?
Because we've preached this for years. It used to be policy and then processes to support the policy, standard operating procedures to support the process, and work instructions to fulfill the standard operating procedure. That was
it's all layers of bullshit.
It's all layers of trying to get someone to say, hey, you know what? Don't share that social security number with somebody. Hey, don't share their credit card number with somebody.
Well, I like that. I mean, I like compliance, but do we actually need all those layers of the aforementioned feces to get to that compliance? That seems illogical to me.
It is completely illogical.
Good.
It's what I mentioned in my presentation at Fusion, right? Is that we have this mindset that we have to somehow bring everything to the lowest denominator, pushing everything to first tier support, making everything so everybody can do everything. We don't need to do that. That's not agility. That is not outcome focused. That is not business valuable, right? Make people think about things intelligently. Have them understand. It's okay to stop and ask a question. You don't have to know everything. Only ask when you need to ask. Search it first. Empower people and get them to think outside the box. Trust your people, as you said a million times, Baron. That goes so much further than a culture, right? That's a culture of empowerment, of decision making. They're the ones who find efficiencies. They're the ones who find new ways to please customers, find new sources of revenue. They're the ones who actually get things done.
Yeah, because the reality is, you can build a change application that will track the bejesus out of those things, but it won't go anywhere if people don't even use it. And so, if you put the onus of compliance upon the user and put teeth in the compliance, such as termination or whatever kind of consequences you want to put in there. Make it financial. I love the financial consequences. It totally makes sense. If we lose money, so do you.
Yeah.
And I think you can get some pretty good and robust systems. So why do we continue to build these systems? Because we just can't get over. There's no way that we can convince people to trust each other.
And shamefully, I feel like, forget corporations and IT organizations. If you look at the world, that's what we're all suffering from, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Even on Facebook, you see someone post something awesome, and then, in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, yeah, but remember that really crappy part of their life, too? We're continually beating this trust up, and I don't think... Well, I guess our digital personas are betraying ourselves. We choose to share what we want to, and we choose not to share what we don't want to. And the same can be said for compliance, right? If I choose not to share that I didn't test this change implementation, I don't have to.
That's why I love Simon Simonek's Start with Why, right? And it was, I think, a couple people at Fusion had actually brought that into their presentations. But that's in the startup culture, that's a huge hack. Everybody says you got to know why. You got to know why you're doing what you're doing. And here's a perfect example. Like I was talking to the team today, and I just generally said, hey, listen, any contact you touch inside of an account, please put in Salesforce. You know, you meet them in a meeting, you get their email, and just put it in Salesforce, just so we can have kind of a semblance of it. And I looked today, I saw an account that we're doing a major project for, and there were 2 contact names. So I said, I can't feasibly imagine that we're delivering this project and only talking to 2 people within this account. And one of my guys on the team said, okay, well, I'll write up a policy for it. I'm like, I don't want you to write up a policy for it. I want you to understand why it matters to me. I said, when I look at the account and I look at names, I might know somebody. They might be at a conference that I'm going to be in. I might want to catch them on social media. They may play soccer with my kids. You know, it's about understanding who you're working with and what you're doing and what the game plan is. And they're like, okay, that makes sense. That's going to go farther than a policy document. That's going to go farther than me telling you I told you.
Okay, but I think it's to satisfy the compliance god, so it's a great point. So one thing that I've brought into my personal templates for all my policies, there will not be a policy statement without a statement of why, the why. What is the value? What is the benefit of the policy? Who does it impact? And so that way we can satisfy the compliance gods, but at the same time, this policy speaks for itself with a reason for people to want to follow the policy. And I think that's a great hack. Is don't get them caught up in the policy, get them caught up in the why. Love it.
That's a good one. Policy hack, baby.
I would love to add to that. I would say and add the impact, what happens, or what the cause is when it doesn't happen. Like give a scenario of like,
right.
And if you don't, Joey's going to get fired because we don't have the information to sustain his headcount. Or Sally's going to have to work weekends because now we don't have a service window where we can actually maintain that this year. Or
lost opportunity in the case of your sales example, right? I mean, there could have been a decision maker that's key and was left out of the loop that we didn't follow up with, and now a huge deal with financial ramifications goes down out the window. I mean,
or even worse, they could have called KPMG of Maryville and got them to do the work.
Burn. I like that. I really like that. If someone had told, nice, love the pillow. I wish it was a golf hat or a golf bag, though. They're always on golf stuff and tennis stuff. I wish that we could talk to the people that are responsible for the Target breach or the Home Depot breach, because I think, that's really what it comes down to, is just reiterating that over and over. The best compliance training is that, just compliance training. It's not a system. It's not governance written into some hacked together system that someone in IT dreamed up. It's just training people over and over and over. If you don't treat this credit card number with respect, we lose X dollars every time that we lose a number. And there's a guy in my neighborhood, he works in risk at a health company, and he knows these numbers. He's like a savant for risk numbers. He says, if we lose this data, if we lose the social security number or something, it's $12,000 for every single time that we lose one number. And I think, like, if you can train people to that level of degree of understanding and then impact their paycheck in such a way as well, I think that will drive beautiful transparency and grow trust within your employees.
So what you're saying is they should steal every one of their employees' identity just so they know what it's like, and then they'll move to us.
I don't know what's in it for them.
But I think this is important, right? So, at the surface, it's down with work instructions. That's kind of like, guys, get over it, right? But understanding the fear factor. So down with work instructions, because you guys need to go back to the basics and learn how to trust each other. And by the way, you need to understand why we do the things that we do. And I feel like so much of it is down to trusting your people to have a conversation about common sense. Okay?
Ryan Ogilvy gave a great presentation when I was in Calgary, and he had an expression I've stolen from him a million times. Thanks, Ryan. Which was warn. Write once, read never. That's exactly how these work instructions come out, right? You spend all this
policies.
You create these work instructions and screenshots and fields are here. Yet everything's changing so fast. By the time you get it out there, it's already. You need more real-time knowledge. It's real-time. Starting with the why, understanding the what.
Yeah. I mean, Facebook has 1 point, God knows how many billion users, and I've never seen a work instruction out of them. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the less words, the better.
Yeah.
No, I will say I'm not cool with the 65-step weird stickman drawing in my IKEA guide as of late. I'm like, really, just a couple words would have helped.
There are a couple of times where words would help. You know, it's supplement. You create dynamic content. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I tweeted it earlier yesterday. I said, I spend so much time just composing beautiful emails so that when you get an email from me, you're clicking on a link. There's no, like, I'm not going to make you ever browse to a file directory. I'm never going to make you go look up something. All the definitions are in there.
But I guarantee you that the technical writer at IKEA spent more time writing that stupid instruction than it would have taken them to take a video camera and just record somebody building that thing. Just put the QR code on the box. Bang. Ask me what language I want to listen to. Bang.
IKEA, hashtag IKEA, are you listening when we post this? You better be hashtagging IKEA.
That'd be interesting. But I would love to see that as a study to see if you're right. Would that actually be more effective? How many people would use
My son learned Cliffs of Dover by Eric Johnson on the piano from YouTube.
Okay. I YouTube everything. Before I read a stupid manual, I'm totally YouTubing it.
Absolutely.
And now if people want to learn how to cut people apart and make them change, they'll YouTube it and come across our beautiful podcast.
Hacking people.
Hacking people, which I think next week it would be interesting to do an episode on building trust, because now we've hit the subject. The real problem with changing people is about companies trusting, people trusting each other. I think that is going to be hard, because it always comes down to those corny trust exercises and team building exercises and high ropes courses.
They're awesome. Let's pull out some Patrick Lencioni and go through the 5 Ds of a team, baby.
I actually do love Patrick Lencioni, and if you like 5 dysfunctions of a team, or 5, there's a positive version of that too. There's a comic version. You should check it out. It's manga edition.
It's an anime.
It's good. I think I've talked about it before. I love comic books for business stuff, though. It resonates with me better than just reading about it.
Absolutely.
Same with your policy docs. So make a comic strip for your policy docs if you want people to read it.
There you go.
And that's how you hack business technology. All right, thanks for joining. Thanks. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
I know.